This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast with original independent science fiction written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the Science Fiction Podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma, and I have the first part of a new short story, Alibi Jones' Christmas Present, as we continue through the adventures of Alibi Jones' Chronological Omnibus on Glow in the Dark Radio. Now, this was originally put out as part of the 500th episode of this podcast. So it came out a couple of years back originally, but now I'm bringing it to you in 3 parts as we present the omnibus in its entirety, going through the whole thing on Glow in the Dark Radio. And so Alibi Jones' Christmas Present Part 1 of 3 begins on this episode. It's a longer short story, which I suppose is a little oxymoronic, but there you go. This one brings together the worlds of Vatican Assassin, the Vatican Assassin Trilogy, and The Adventures of Alibi Jones. And it brings together Alibi Jones and his father, BC, too. Fun with time travel and a little trickery. So we'll be getting into Alibi Jones' Christmas Present coming up on Glow in the Dark Radio, as Alibi and company settle into life at the Hornet's Nest. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but this short story is also a comic book story. This story filled issue 3 of the Adventures of Alibi Jones comics, and it's now collected in the Chronological Omnibus. Yes, I played off of the Chronological Omnibus's name when I put together the comic book one. I thought it was funny, and, they do kind of match. Just slightly different cover dress. But yes, this is in the Chronological Omnibus now, and you can look for the link in the show notes. It's available at Indie Planet. You can get the print copy there and an e-copy as well. And the ebook is also available on Amazon, amazon.com. The Adventures of Alibi Jones, Chronological Omnibus. A big thank you to patrons who help keep the podcast going. You guys do. You're amazing. I couldn't do it without you. And for those of you who are still with me, thank you, thank you, thank you. For those of you who are listening for the first time, I only support this podcast through Patreon, through the contributions of listeners. There's no ads, so you're not going to be, hearing something in the middle of the story. I do run promos for other folks' shows, but there's no promo on this show, because it's the very first episode of this short story. So yes, if you can, I would love to have you as a patron, and if you can, please support the podcast. For $2, $5, or $10 a month, you can do so at patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. Now, one of those things you guys help me pay for is the websites that I host the podcast on. And I had been using a Canadian company called .easy for many years, but all of a sudden it's like they've changed hands or something, and their service went way down, and their costs went way up. It's like, that's not how it's supposed to work, folks. And I've been having trouble with them keeping my blogs up for alibijones.com and vaticanassassin.com. And then they wanted to raise costs, exponentially higher for the hosting they provide, which is shitty. So, AlibiJones.com was about to renew for hosting, and I was like, no way. So I've moved it over to a different host, now on Namecheap, and set it up as a WordPress blog, and I've transferred over all the old blog posts. So now you can go to AlibiJones.com for the new layout on a new host. But you can still listen to the show. You can still listen to the podcast right there on the site. And it's only just started, so I haven't really tweaked much. So I do plan to do a little bit more with that over time. We shall see. AlibiJones.com, though, should be much easier to use now and not provide a security threat. So bye-bye, .easy. And as my stuff expires there, I'll probably be moving on. And let me know if you have any suggestions. Things you'd like to see or ways I could improve AlibiJones.com now that it's a whole different setup. Well, no promo this week, so we're going to get right into the latest from Alibi Jones, shifting from the novel Alibi Jones and the Hornet's Nest to a new short story. Now here's Alibi Jones' Christmas Present, Part 1 of 3, on Glow in the Dark Radio. Dip-dop, dip-dop, dip-dop. Alibi tuned into the rhythm of his footfalls as he jogged down an empty corridor in an old part of the Hornet's Nest. As refugees from the now hostile Solar Alliance continued to arrive, looking for new places to call home, Alibi and his crew opened up previously abandoned portions of the until recently unused base to accommodate them, which also opened up new jogging routes for Alibi Jones. He'd taken up running as a ruse to help him escape a previous captivity, but found he enjoyed it. Gave him time to think, some needed exercise, and it wasn't boring like jogging on the treadmill in the gym. Running through the corridors of the Hornet's Nest helped Alibi familiarize himself with his base. Well, it was still technically his, though it had been the Solar Alliance that had put him in charge. But their undercover mission for the Solar Alliance transformed when Alibi, his crew, and a few others left the Solar Alliance to set out on their own. Maybe it was just force of habit, but even after they'd broken away, and legally taken ownership of the Hornet's Nest, thanks to some financial wizardry from Alibi's business manager Emily, the crew still assumed Alibi was in charge. Alibi knew better, because ever since she'd arrived, his Aunt Anita had in actuality taken over. It was her nature. Couldn't expect the former leader of the free world to take a back seat to anyone. Never mind her foster son. He'd noticed the way the others had started to ask her for her opinion, defer to her lead over his. It happened naturally. He also noticed that, unlike the others, she didn't ask him for his opinion or defer to his leadership. She did as she saw fit, which hadn't bothered Alibi too much so far. Okay, maybe a little. What's this? People? Here? It appeared to be a construction crew, but Alibi didn't know of anything scheduled for this section, still fairly remote from the currently inhabited part of the base. They wouldn't be rehabbing these quarters, not yet. As Alibi jogged closer, he spotted his Aunt Anita, overseeing a crew of 4 workers. Then the noise began. Scrape! A cutting tool shrieked out, hitting stone wall. Fwash! A laser cutter hissed. They were cutting a new doorway into the side of the corridor. Padding and protective coverings bounded a bare, door-shaped patch to prevent damage to the floor and the rest of the wall as they gouged out native rock. The worker with the industrial laser cutter now stood by as two of her crew worked to tear a chunk of stone they'd carved from out of the future door space. This early in the process, they needed to use simple tools, a crowbar and a spade. Alibi saw other chunks they'd pulled out, small square boulders, on a nearby floating pallet. "Alibi," his aunt said, turning to acknowledge him as he jogged up. She turned back to observe the workers, who had stopped, but now also turned, back to their gouging. "Chank!" A heavy-set worker hammered the crowbar into a groove they'd hollowed out. "Aunt Anita?" Alibi asked. "What are you doing?" "Decided to begin my arboretum," she said. "Like my mentors, Dr. Van Kilner." "Fwash!" the laser cutter interrupted. "Hold on!" Anita shouted over the laser. The worker stopped. "How about you take 5 for now, okay?" she said. The 2 men and 2 women nodded. The workers put down their tools and instinctively moved a short distance down the corridor to leave Alibi and Anita to themselves. "Decided I needed to do this," his aunt said. "This is our home now, Allie." She looked around at the corridor walls, but she was looking beyond, at the whole base. "Must make the most of it. Which reminds me."
"Oh no, I know that look in her eyes. What is she up to?"
"It's almost Christmas," she said. "We need to decorate our home."
"Not what I expected."
"Really?" Alibi asked. "We haven't celebrated since I was a kid." I know, she said. "But everyone's been through a lot. Lost a lot. Lost friends. Lost our homes thanks to Constantine and his louts." She smiled what Alibi thought of as her practical politician smile. "I think celebrating the holidays could be good for us all," she said. Alibi tried to read her, see if she was serious or floating the idea as a trial balloon. "What if people don't celebrate?" he asked. She looked a little exasperated. "Then they can make up their own excuse to have fun," she said.
"She's serious."
"Guess it's a good idea," he said. The old prime representative came out, proud and stern. "I'm not asking your permission, Alibi," she said. Alibi frowned.
"Yeah, who's in charge here?"
She softened, a little, smiled a more authentic smile. He could see it in her eyes. "There is something I need to ask," she said.
Uh-oh, here it comes.
"I need you to get us a Christmas tree," she said. "What?" The surprise stunned Alibi. He reacted as he sometimes did with Anita, feeling suddenly 7 years old again. "What if I don't want to?" he asked. "What if I don't want to celebrate?" In response, Anita shifted into motherly mode. "Your father was a priest, Alibi," she said, laying on a little guilt the way any good mother would. "It's in your blood." "He was also an assassin," Alibi cracked. "Since we're talking blood." Anita pursed her lips. Alibi continued. "Why don't you get Brisby to do it? Make him good for something." "I don't know where he is," she said.
"Brisby's behavior has been kind of suspicious lately."
"Neither do I," Alibi said. "Could be a bad sign." "Back to my tree, Alibi," Anita said, already moving on. "I'm sure you can get us one in a store on Depot. You don't usually mind a run to the colony." "I know," he said. He couldn't help it. He caved, as usual. "I mean, you're right. I'll go." "Go today," she said. "It needs to be soon. We need a little Christmas cheer around this place." "All right," Alibi said. "I'll finish my run, get cleaned up, and head out." "Good," Anita said, pleased. She looked momentarily lost in thought. Alibi stretched his legs and prepared to jog off. He looked over at the workers, who looked relieved his and Anita's conversation was ending. He smiled. "A nice tree, Alibi," his aunt said, as the thought hit her. "Make sure it has a mix of colored lights, not just one or two. And not flashing. Oh, I hate the flashing ones." "Understood," Alibi said. "Orders received." "Don't be a wise ass, Allie," she said. Anita frowned as she admonished him. "And, especially at this time of year, try to remember your father had a kind, loving, caring, and good side. You know, I see some of his best features in you, Alibi." Now Alibi really wanted to run away, but his aunt wasn't finished yet. "I do wish you could have known him when he was alive," she said. She saddened. "I know, Aunt Anita," he said, turning sympathetic. "I know." She nodded. He took it as his cue and began to jog off. "All right," Alibi heard his aunt stir up the workers behind him. "Break's over." Alibi quickened his pace, trying to get out of earshot before the shrieking and blasting began again. He couldn't help but think of his father as he ran. "I know him better than you know, Aunt Anita. Better than I can tell you, even. He taught me telepathic defenses in my dreams. And that wishing stone kind of brought him right to me." Alibi heard the faint shriek of metal on stone behind him begin and fade as he jogged on. "None of that is really knowing him, though. Wonder what he was like. Day-to-day normal BC. Even if you kill people, I mean, you can't be, like, all deadly all the time. Can you?" BC, Bernard Campion, stood in the doorway to a classroom, about to leave. He smiled at the militant-looking woman priest standing at the front of the class of young couples. He'd been observing the class in his undercover role as Vatican advisor. Fairly new in his duties as an assassin for the Vatican and the New Catholic Church, BC found he enjoyed the play acting required to pull off his assignments. They usually had him act the part of a spin doctor, a public relations man for the NCC. But they'd sent him to Mar del Plata this fall in a higher-level capacity, an official observer for Pope Peter II. He'd need the access his status granted him to pull off the mission when the time came. "About a month now, coming on Christmas." "Be sure to tell the Vatican how well we prepare our couples for marriage, won't you, Father Campion?" the woman priest asked. BC nodded. No translator units here. He'd needed to relearn Spanish for the assignment, and answered back in her native tongue. "Absolutely, Reverend Gonzalez," he said. "All in my report. Thank you again for letting me audit your class, and remember, please, call me BC. "Of course, BC," she said. He closed the door behind him and made his way out of the building, heading up the street towards the Basilica Cathedral de los Santos Pedro y Cecilia, the old Mar del Plata Catholic Cathedral. BC nodded and smiled at an older woman, a parishioner whose face he recognized, as he passed her heading up the cathedral steps. "Yup, that's me, BC, just your mild-mannered man from the Vatican." Inside, BC walked up the center aisle of the church, alone with his thoughts. His carpeted footsteps still managed to echo in the silence of the empty church. "Simply here to see how well you're transitioning to the new Catholic Church, that's all. Certainly not to establish my cover for my next hit, no." He startled. Was that movement? By the side of the altar? Is someone there? He tried to maintain a calm demeanor as he reached and crossed the altar and walked over to the empty sacristy, the area out of public view off of the altar where the priests, altar boys, and ministers prepared for Mass. He surveyed the room and then made a quick examination of the closet of clerical robes, the only real hiding place. Empty. BC backed out of the closet and bumped into the Advent wreath. Waiting, candles unburned, ready to be used that coming Sunday. He caught the white one as it threatened to fall. Yikes! Well, at least I didn't jump that time. Must be seeing things. BC walked back to the door to the altar. There's no one here. He looked out from the sacristy to the front row of pews, ground zero for his mission. Still a month till she comes down. Christmas Eve. Gotta be in the right place at the right time. Which reminds me, should head for dinner. BC headed over the beautiful, glass-canopied, raised walkway leading from the church sacristy to the cathedral's rectory. The height afforded him a few glimpses of the ocean in the distance. There are worse places to observe. And they haven't asked me to say Mass, which I've never done. BC opened the door to the rectory, crossed the reception area, and headed for the kitchen. The bishop was already seated at the dinner table. BC liked Bishop Soul, or, as he still preferred, Father Ricky. BC figured if Soul was willing to call him BC, he was willing to call the bishop by his nickname, too. The warm, wafting aroma of fresh-baked bread caught BC's senses, and he inhaled it and smiled. Father Campion, the bishop greeted him. Good! I was just telling Mrs. Gamera. We need to involve you more in church activities. He smiled. Need some help with the holiday masses. And we can't have a Vatican representative here and not show you off some. Alibi stood in the open door to Krish's lab, still dressed in his jogging outfit. He'd wanted to head right home and clean up a bit after his run, but Krish called and said it was important, could not wait. So Alibi brought his sweaty self directly to the lab to discover what was so urgent. You wanted to see me? He asked. Just finishing my run. Krish toddled over, arms waving, encouraging Alibi into the lab. Yes, Alibi, Krish said. Come in, come in. Alibi noted how the short, older Indian man had grown rounder round his edges. Krish's usual white lab coat looked like it now strained a bit to contain him. Suppose it's a sign he's comfortable here at the Hornet's Nest. That's good, then. Look at this, Alibi, Krish said. Look! Wow, haven't seen Krish this excited in a long time. Krish stepped back so Alibi could see the objects sitting on the main table in the lab. Holy! Haven't seen anything like that in a couple of years. A box about 1 meter square sat on the table. An intricate, almost pattern wove across the surface of the cube. Furrows, hollows, and raised ridges worked into a design the human eye couldn't quite resolve into a whole. Alibi's vision blurred as his eyes tried to focus on the box, while his mind registered involuntary annoyance at its inability to resolve the object before him. Alibi knew whom the artifact belonged to the second he saw it. That's Devrizium, Alibi said. Where'd you get it? How is it even here? Not everything Devrizium faded from existence after the Time War, Krish said. We still find things, occasionally. Really, Alibi said. No one's told me. I thought everything was gone. Well, Krish said, proud and a little conspiratorial, I still have my network, you know, Alibi. Alibi moved up next to the table to take a closer look at the box. Have to ask Aunt Anita why no one's told me about any other artifacts. Alibi felt his hand drawn towards the box, but knew better than to actually lay a finger on it. A couple of years ago, he'd touched another Devrizium box, did a short bit of time traveling, met himself, and in so doing, caused some sort of problem with the time stream, which led to the Devrizium trying to eliminate him from all existence in a time war. Best not to touch it, even though there's something about it. I want to touch it. Why? You sure it's real? Alibi asked. Don't touch it, Alibi. Alibi saw his own fingertips hovering involuntarily mere centimeters from the box, and pulled his hands back, tucking his arms at his sides. "I know," he said, chagrined. "The initial tests were positive for the Devrizium," Krish said. "I'm still waiting on the results from the few deeper scans we dared try. I wanted your opinion, too." Krish drew close and whispered his question. "Is it Devrizium?" Alibi stepped back to take in the whole box. He looked it over, appraising it. "I think so," he said. "Looks like. Course, that means it might fade away at any second, too." "And it might not," Krish said. "It is still here, after all. But, with the Devrizium gone, it may not even work. Not anymore." "Most of their stuff is gone," Alibi said. "Heck, Krish, most people now don't even remember they existed in the first place. The time stream definitely shifted when they lost the Time War and disappeared." Krish raised his voice. "Speaking of time, you must go, Alibi." Alibi, startled, realized something about the box had again drawn him back close to it. Without thinking, he was again almost touching it. "What the?" "Your aunt told me I could only borrow you for a few minutes," Krish said. "She said there's a Christmas errand you must run." He paused and smiled a broad smile as he continued. "And I am late for afternoon tea with a lady friend." "But I don't want to go," Alibi protested. "This is important. I should be here." "Maybe you are not told about any other Devrizium artifacts because they were afraid you would get like this," Krish said. "Very possessive, you know." "I am not," Alibi said. I'm just concerned. It's Devrizium. It could disappear any second." Krish ushered Alibi physically towards the door. "And it could not," Krish said. "However, crossing your aunt has definite consequences I do not care to face." Alibi tried one last time as he left the lab. He turned, standing outside in the corridor. "Krish, please." Krish started his sliding lab door to closing as he yelled back, "Go!" Alibi jogged a short way down the corridor. "Damn it!" He stopped, just out of sight of Krish's doorway. "I shouldn't do this, but I have to go to Depot for Aunt Anita." Alibi pressed his back against the wall. He tried to keep himself from view as he watched Krish's lab door. "And I need a closer look at that box before it vanishes, just like everything else left by the Devrizium has." Krish walked out of the lab. He looked both ways down the corridor before heading in the opposite direction. He didn't seem to see Alibi. "Good," Alibi said under his breath. "Go have your tea, Krish." Alibi tiptoed back to the doorway. He looked around, then shook his head. "Can I try and look more suspicious?" Alibi keyed in Krish's door code, abusing the trust the old man had given him long ago. "Sorry, Krish." Alibi walked into the lab, looking around as the door slid shut behind him. He focused back on the newly discovered Devrizium box and walked over to it. "No way this will still be here when I get back from my Christmas tree run." Christmas. Don't know what my aunt is thinking. He stared at the box, leaning in. Part of him wanted to touch it, feel the sleek, organic design under his fingers, see if it was as smooth as it looked. He reached out his hands, but kept them at a deliberate distance. My luck, I'd bring them back. Let them stay in the past. Alibi circled around to the other side of the table. He kept his hands out in front of him, near the box, trying to feel for anything, a force field, or any sense of power coming from it. Is that something? A tingle, maybe? Man, how is this thing even here? Alibi's thoughts turned to his own traveling. He had to leave soon. He was running out of time. Can't stay here long. My aunt wants her tree. Don't need another guilt trip. He shook his head.
Even if I don't believe her BS about my father, don't see him being a big Christmas guy. He was an assassin. Probably celebrated by killing people. In the name of God, of course. Intent on the Devrizium artifact, Alibi didn't hear the door slide open, but movement caught his attention, and he looked up to see Krish standing in the open doorway, eyes questioning and hurt. Krish? A golden glow surrounded Alibi and the Devrizium box, which Alibi now realized he'd touched. Uh-oh. Alibi? What are you doing? Krish faded away in a gray-gold haze.
That was Alibi Jones' Christmas Present, Part 1 of 3, on Glow in the Dark Radio, as the adventures of Alibi Jones' Chronological Omnibus continues. And this story is also a comic book short story, so it can be found in the Chronological Omnibus as well. Well, Alibi probably shouldn't have touched the Devrizium box. And we just got a glimpse of BC's past, a glimpse back into BC's past when he had only just become a Vatican assassin. And he was on assignment in Argentina. And of course, now that Alibi's touched the box, he is traveling back through time. And because he was thinking about his father, where do you think he'll end up? You know. Join us on our next episode as Alibi Jones meets his father as a young man in their distant past. Part 2 of 3 of Alibi Jones' Christmas Present coming up on our next episode. Once again, a big thank you to patrons who help keep the podcast going. Couldn't do it without you. And you can become a patron and help support the podcast. Find out more at patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio. You can do so for $2, $5, or $10 a month, and at the very least get episodes early. I tend to get my patrons the episodes a few days early. And when I have additional stuff, patrons get it first. There is a new AlibiJones.com. Check that out and let me know what you think, and let me know if you have any suggestions or ways it could be improved. And once again, check out the Chronological Omnibus, the Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus, to read this short story as a comic book story. Casey Metcalf did the present-day Alibi Jones art, but I got the guys who had done the Vatican Assassin graphic novel, Christian Navarro and Juan Carlos Quatordio, to collaborate on the pages in the past. So in the comic book short story, when Alibi Jones goes into the past, he goes back into the same art as the graphic novel, which I thought was cool. I don't know. As the creator, that's what I wanted to see, and I was lucky enough to get the artists involved and collaborating on this. And if you do purchase the ebook or the print book from Indie Planet, the creators each get their royalty share. Indie Planet just does the distribution, which is pretty cool. Thank you, Indie Planet. And you can find the link in the show notes to get a print copy of The Adventures of Alibi Jones' Chronological Omnibus through Indie Planet. And that is all for this week. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. Thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio.
Glow in the Dark Radio.
This podcast presentation is copyright 2026 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License, CC by NC ND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.